Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Mac and D podcast. How you doing, Jimmy D?
I'm doing great, man. It's sad. As you've noted, I named our podcast this week, What Do We Do Now? I mean, football is for real over. It is, however, exciting as we come into draft season, etc. Free agency tampering period. There's like a couple of weeks of like pure excitement, and then like a few months of just like truly nothing happening NFL related.
Yeah, I think we got some free agency, a little bit of draft to keep us distracted. But yeah, I've been trying to find some coping mechanisms this week. I've been playing a lot of video games, been watching The Last of Us and playing The Last of Us Part 2. Great game, by the way, concurrently, just so I know what the story is and everything. So just been finding ways to stay distracted in the dark days of the off season. So in this podcast, we're going to go a little bit over NFL free agency. We're going to talk a little bit about NBA midseason predictions, and then we're going to play some fun games at the end. A little of a who's taller in the NFL. So that should be pretty fun. But starting off, we're going to go into news. So this past weekend was the NBA All-Star Weekend, which kind of just added to the slow period of everything going on. No NFL games, no nightly NBA games. We only had All-Star Weekend going on. And it was a roller coaster of an All-Star Weekend for the NBA. Were you able to catch any of the action, Jimmy D?
I saw different highlights. Like there was like a passing contest that looked really kind of goofy the way like it was all the guys just rotating through the stations. Obviously saw some highlights of Mac McClung throwing down a few dunks, and then just some embarrassing gameplay from the game itself. To where I was like, I'm glad I did not catch that whole game.
Yeah, you kind of just nailed everything in a three-sentence thing right there. So we started out the weekend with the NBA skills competition. This competition actually ended up being kind of cool in the past, but this year it was abysmal to watch. They decided to break it up by teams, and it was the Antetokounmpos. It was three rookies, which only one of the rookies is actually playing well, which is Paulo. Jabari Smith Jr. is playing terribly this year. It looks like an absolute bust. And then Ivy's been playing pretty well, but like not up to his draft billing, in my opinion. And then we had the Utah players, which, like, if anybody's watched Utah this year, they're just like, not that exciting of a team. And so they all went head to head in the skills competition. Instead of playing individually, they played together as a team. And excuse me, it was just like really weird to watch because they were all trying to compete as a team, but you had to like also do your own individual thing. And halfway through the event, it just was a perfect encapsulation of how the entire night was going. They had this one thing where it was supposed to be a moving target for how they were passing. It was like a kind of like one of those things that you would see in an arcade where like the target was just moving back and forth, and the target stopped working. So instead they're like, oh, you got to do a bounce pass instead of a regular pass, which like isn't hard for a pro. So all three teams did not perform very well. The Antetokounmpos didn't win a single thing. Giannis had an injured wrist during the event, so he technically didn't even compete. It was just his two brothers plus Drew Holiday, which is even in Tetecumpo. So the whole thing was just the most scuffed competition I've ever seen. The 3-point contest was really exciting. My pick, Tyrese Halliburton, kind of fell a little bit short. He had a great first round, but then he sat for too long. I don't know why the NBA does that, where the guy who plays the best in the first round doesn't immediately get to go in the second round and keep that hot hand going. He ended up going last in the second round. That kind of hurt him in the competition. Damian Lillard shot extremely well compared to a lot of the other guys like Kevin Huerter, etc., who really shit the bed. So shout out Damian Lillard. That made it really exciting. And then probably the best moment of that weekend was Mac McClung and everything that he was doing. His dunks were electric. Anybody that watched him in college whenever he was Texas Tech knew that he had athleticism. Kind of a boring player on the court, but whenever it comes to competitions like this dude is second to none. And I just want to take a little bit of credit, Jimmy D. If you look at Mac McClung's full name, it's Matthew Mac McClung. So I basically won the dunk contest this weekend, right?
Honestly, yes. I mean, you're taller than him. You can probably shoot better than him. That's his issue, right? It's like the dude just can't shoot. And when you're 5'10" and can't shoot, it's like I don't know how he's able to still be in the NBA. He's just lucky that he can literally jump and put his feet on the rim. Maybe luck's not the right term. It's like he's definitely maximized his talent of just pure ups because he has just tons of like high school highlight tapes out there and some pretty amazing dunks at Georgetown as well. But yeah, he doesn't really have an NBA career ahead of him because he doesn't play defense and can't shoot. Like that's a tough life to live. But you know, kudos to him. This is probably going to be the highlight of his career. and well earned, really, because the dunk contest is just so lame that the stars don't do it anymore. So at least he put some juice back into it.
Yeah, put your take out there. Do you think the NBA dunk contest is dead at this point, or do you think this rejuvenated things a little bit?
No, I think it's dead at this point. If you have to bring G League players into the All Star game, like the whole point of the G League is you're not ready to even play in the NBA, let alone be considered an All Star. Right, I mean, it's dead. It used to be like MJ going in there and throwing it down, Vince Carter putting in huge dunks, like, I mean, Blake Griffin when he was athletic, right? I mean, he unfortunately just slowed down as he got older, it just happens, but, like, I mean, huge names used to play, like, the top athletes were the ones throwing down these dunks, and now it's just like, I mean, it's just as lame as can be.
Yeah, I think the old chapter of the NBA dunk contest died in, I think it was 2019, when Aaron Gordon was in his second dunk contest. He was dunking beautifully, looking amazing as always, the prolific dunker for then the Orlando Magic, now the Denver Nuggets. And he lost to Derrick Jones Jr., which I will always be salty about because Derrick Jones Jr. was also a G Leaguer, D League back then, just like Mac McClung. And he only won because one of the voters for the competition, one of the judges, was Dwayne Wade, who, guess who has an interest in the Miami Heat, where Derrick Jones Jr. was on, or at least part of their affiliate league. Guess what? They got that Miami Heat connection. So I thought that that chapter of like big time NBA dunk contest died right then. We kind of got this new iteration of younger players that are kind of like new cast of characters always coming in and just like showing what they can be. We've seen in recent years, we've seen like Donovan Mitchell, a young John Wall. I think those are like kind of like the future, like the guys who like could be up next. Like I think Trey Murphy put up a great performance this weekend. I think KJ Martin was really great. I think it's like that back end of the dunk contest that's really, really struggling. I don't know if you watched any of the Jericho Sims dunks, but they were stupid. Like they weren't even close to being entertaining. And when your floor is just like that low at the back end of the contest, it's going to make the entire thing look kind of bad. At least that's my opinion on the entire
I
thing.
mean, the dunk contest is really, it's just for NBA Twitter, NBA TikTok, right? Like, you just want the clip of the most impressive dunk. You don't really expect people to watch the whole thing, at least not anymore.
Yeah, and it's at the point too that like it's almost better to see the replay than see it in real time. Like the first Mac McClunk dunk that he did, where he tapped it off the backboard in real time, you couldn't even see that. Like it happened so quickly, you had to see the replay. So it really is just like something to get that spectacle, get that picture, get that video out there. And yeah, it's almost better to see it at that
Um,
point than trying to see it live because you can't see
I
it
was gonna
all.
say, not to, like, honestly, every dunk I think is just more impressive in slow mo because,
Yeah.
like you said, they just happen so quickly. I mean, like, every highlight is LeBron stretching out over 10 seconds of a slow mo type dunk, right? It's not him actually in real time because it just happens so quickly that you're like, oh, okay, cool. It looked like a layup. And then, like, in slow mo, you're like, holy shit, what did that human being just do?
Exactly. It looks like they're floating on air, walking in the air, making contortions and everything. So there were multiple times where Mac McClung's dunks just look so much more impressive once you're able to break it down frame by frame and see all the details that goes into it. So I thought it was a better than normal dunk contest. I've seen some pretty bad ones in my day. I would have liked to see a few more props, but you kind of get clowned for those in the NBA community if you bring out too many of those. So I understand why they did it. The All-Star game itself though, I think it's one of the most misunderstood spectacles in all of sports. It's definitely getting closer to that Pro Bowl level of like, what are we even doing here? But there have been multiple times where it's been close going into that fourth quarter, and that fourth quarter is amazing. Unfortunately, this year LeBron James did a great job of picking his team, but his team just like did not come to play, and the fourth quarter got really out of hand, and it was really slow towards the end. But I think if we would have gotten a closer fourth quarter to start the fourth quarter with that Elam ending, it could have actually been pretty entertaining rather than the glorified layup line that we saw. What did you think of the whole situation?
I honestly, it just got ugly quick. I mean, like I said, I didn't watch the whole game or anything, but everything I saw from it, I was just like, okay, I'm glad I didn't sit down for the entirety of this event.
Yeah, and like
It's
I
not impressive to me to watch a guy that's 6'10" dunk, and when there's no defense, that's all they're doing. It's just kind of a chill dunk, and it's like, okay, cool. Like you're supposed to. It's like playing on a Nerf basketball hoop for you.
And that's where it's tough, right? Is whenever there's like a guy that's about ready to go into the paint and you're like, oh yeah, he's gonna dunk, he's gonna do something really exciting, and then like he's trying to save some energy and just ends up doing a layup, or in Luca's case, just not really athletic enough to do a super flashy dunk. So there were a few moments where I'm like, wow, this is bad, especially towards the end, whenever they were just shooting up half court shots, just trying to have that last second TikTok moment. But I enjoyed it in the most part. You know, like it's supposed to be a spectacle. It's supposed to be just a fun thing for kids to do. Unfortunately, we had no juice because it was a Utah Jazz crowd, and they probably are the least inspiring fan base in all of the NBA. So I had to get that out there. That's my NBA All Star Game take. So let's move to college basketball now. Did you get a chance to watch any of the college basketball moments that were going down this weekend?
Well, I'm trying to think. I think I'm mixing up weekends because I watched the Mizzou Tennessee game, but that was last week. And then
Mhm.
so Tennessee dropped that game, but then what beat Bama number one overall, but then dropped another game to like Texas A&M maybe or something like that. Like I hope I'm
Last
getting my
night.
teams right. It's like they've just been all over the place. It really feels like one of the greatest years of parity in college basketball. I mean, there's no true just dominant number one team, at least from what I've seen, which makes March Madness that much more exciting.
Yeah, if you haven't been paying attention, which is completely valid, a lot of people don't pay attention to March Madness until the end of the year. I've just been kind of picking up on it lately for the most part. It's a year of parity, just like you said. If you look at the top 25, there are teams with almost double digit losses already in the top 25. Usually that never happens. We get down to the stretch, and the number 24, number 25 team has like five or six losses at the most. So we are very much so getting a flat year. We have a couple of teams at the top, which I feel like have kind of separated themselves a little bit: Alabama, Houston, Purdue. But then after that, like if you want to try and tell me that Kansas and Virginia are like pretty similar teams, which they're about like 10 spots away in the rankings, I think that's valid. Like if you tell me that Virginia is going to beat Kansas, like that is completely fair. And just like looking further down in bracketology, like Xavier is a 4 seed right now. I could you could definitely tell me that they're better than Baylor at number 2 seed right now, and I would completely agree with you. So there are going to be a lot of upsets. If you haven't started looking at brackets yet, I think you're going to be very surprised with the number of 13 and 12 seeds that end up winning this year. Honestly, all of them might end up being upsets because it is so close this year. The margins are razor thin. So are there any teams so far in March Madness that you're looking at as like a team that you kind of maybe want to see go far?
I mean, obviously Illinois, always want to see them go far. You know, I've talked about it. It's like they're capable of doing so if they get hot, but they don't know how to seemingly string games together, which makes it seem like they might be like an upset team early in the tournament and then just get blown out by the second round or something like that. It's kind of cool to see Bama have a good basketball team. It,
Yeah.
it feels wrong that they're allowed to have good football and basketball, but screw it. For those guys that showed up to Bama and probably got laughed at when they committed to a football school, it's good to see them do well. Um, After that, I mean, I'm just the classic Midwesterner. I just want to see Big Ten teams do well. So I guess if Purdue goes far, like that's pretty cool. But otherwise, I don't have any like real affinity for anything outside of Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that Illinois is an interesting case where it almost feels like they have better NBA prospects rather than actually translating to on-court college success, which is really weird because like typically if you have good NBA level players, like you're going to play well in college basketball, but it doesn't really feel that way. They have good individual prospects, but they don't really play super well as a team together. But if everything gels together come March, which like it totally could, that could really be a team to look out for. If you're looking at like a team that just like has everything going for them story wise, I think you gotta love Texas this year. That's kind of like my team that I'm circling as a team that's going to go super far. They always have a good big man. They always have a good guard going on. And this year, especially, they have the story too, because their coach got fired because of a domestic violence case, Chris Beard, and they replaced him with one of their assistants. And ever since they let go of Chris Beard, they have been on a tear. Like, if you want to talk about a lock for coach of the year, it is Texas's assistant coach. So right now in bracketology, they're looking at a 2 seed right on that like 1 to 3 line right now. And I think they have everything to just like put together a few good weekends in March Madness and really pull it off for the entire thing. So that's a team that I'm circling right now. Looking at NFL though, as we transition to off-season stuff, it is truly the league that never sleeps. We're making some decisions now at this point whenever it comes to free agency. We have two big cases that a lot of folks are circling right now. We have Lamar Jackson and Danny Dimes. So, Lamar Jackson right now, we don't really know what he's going to end up doing. The Ravens are most likely going to offer him the franchise tag. Whether he decides to play on it is a little bit more up to discussion. What's your prediction for how this Lamar Jackson saga ends up going down? The tag has to be sent by March 7th is the deadline, and it feels like the days are dwindling for the Lamar Jackson era in Baltimore.
Yeah, I it really feels like this is about to be ugly. I don't see any chance that he plays under a franchise tag. He's talked about wanting basically the Deshaun type contract, or at least that's everything that leaks out. And I just don't see the Ravens doing that. It keeps sounding like they want to do about 100 mil guaranteed and then 150 million of incentives. And Lamar's like, no, this is my time to get a bag, right? 25 MVP. This is kind of the peak value he'll ever have, and he's really want to take full advantage. This could be bad for Ravens fans at least. I'm sure some teams are out there trying to think what's the right package to put together for Lamar. The problem is the amount you're gonna have to trade to get him, and then followed up by signing him on a monster contract. Like it's just gonna be tough. I just don't think this is gonna end the way Lamar wants it to, which is unfortunate because he definitely earned the money that he is asking for. I think this is just an element where it's like this is kind of proof you should have agents, right? Roquan Smith's the outlier, not the norm for people without agents, and I think it's going to hurt Lamar here in the long run.
Yeah, definitely not the rule. We're doing our free agency predictions today. Lamar is top of the list. He is literally 101 whenever it comes to NFL real life free agents. We both have him predicted to go back to the Ravens. What's the percentage odds of him going back to the Ravens in your mind?
Probably like 65 to 75%. I think just because when it comes down to it, they're going to put that franchise tag out there. And to me, if he doesn't play this season, he's still on the Ravens, right? Which is, I think, more likely than him signing a franchise tag to get traded and restructure. Just because I think that's a death sentence for the Ravens organization. Like they built everything around if Lamar's healthy, we win. You can't just all of a sudden flip the switch on that and hope Huntley becomes elite.
Yeah, they're saving so much money when it comes to like skill position players because they have Lamar Jackson who's able to improvise and make some of those like Miles Boykin level players look a little bit better than they actually are. I have him going back to the Ravens, but honestly, I think your 65 to 75% prediction is a little high. I'd put it more at like 55, maybe 60%, which is a better than not chance, right? But I just think there's a very good chance that the Ravens, who are such a pragmatic organization, like even going back to after winning the Super Bowl, trade away Anquan Bolden, let key guys like Paul Kruger and Pernell McPhee go away for nothing in order to save some money and maybe go towards those next level guys, the guys who are younger, go after some draft picks, get those comp picks. They're very, very patriotsy in that approach. So I'm a little worried if I was looking at the Ravens perspective here, a Ravens fan perspective, that the Ravens are going to look at this and be like, hey, we have a lot of faith in our scouting department. We have a lot of faith in our ability to use analytics to get the best possible player to replace Lamar. And I think they might end up trading Lamar at that point if they are able to get a haul. However, as you mentioned, that Deshaun Watson trade, which I think if you went back in time, I don't think the Browns do that given how poorly he's played, given all the extra character concerns that we've seen. I don't think they go back and do that trade and then also give him all of that money. I think that teams are going to be a little bit more hesitant to just give out 240 million or whatever Lamar ends up wanting for a guy who seems like he may not even want to be overly devoted to a team. Like he just missed the playoff game that the Ravens were in. He wasn't even in attendance. So I'm putting it at like 55%. That's my prediction, but that's still better than not chance to go back to Baltimore. The other weird situation we have going on, this is probably the wildest story that got people super riled up, was Daniel Jones, who just recently changed agents this past week, is apparently going after $45 million annually in money for a team that he signs with this year. Do you think he reaches that $45 million mark?
Unequivocally, no. And no team is dumb enough to do that. I get it. The quarterback market keeps getting reset, and the new QB1 number is that 50 million mark. But I mean, no one looks at last season and goes, "Wow, that's the proof I needed to think this is the guy that's going to lead me to the Super Bowl." Right? He still misses deep throws. I mean, he's got some legs, but not not elite level like Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson. Right? I mean, it's just he's just pretty fast, and you're not expecting it. Um, but there's no way. I mean, 25 million I think is pretty damn reasonable. I just don't know how 45 got thrown out.
Yeah, I saw some things that maybe like 45 million was like a bit of a smokescreen. If we say that we want 45 million, maybe it makes the 37, 38 million that we're actually wanting look a little bit more realistic, just that classic open the door negotiation tactic. I also think 45 billion is insane. I think if you give 45 billion to a quarterback that isn't in that top tier, you're basically just guaranteeing that you're going to win 7 to 9 games for the rest of that contract. So if he was a little bit better or just like had shown a little bit more outside of this 1 year, which like honestly, like Daniel Jones hasn't done much outside of this 1 year. Like if this was like Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert or something like that, then I can justify the 45 million. But God, that's just so much of your cap that you won't then be able to invest into other positions. Like they need wide receivers. They need tight ends. They need a lot of other positions. Maybe not as much on defense, but especially on offense. So they are in desperate need of talent, and they got to pay Saquon Barkley. So I think that this was wishful thinking. It's a little bit of just a strong arm sort of thing, and the change in agents I think was also just like oh, I'm LeBron James. I'm going to go to whatever agency that I want, and try and get as much money as possible. But I don't think it'll actually happen. It's bold. I respect it, but I just don't think it'll happen either.
I don't know if I respect. It's like, dude, you got to know who you are.
Yeah. Where do you think Daniel Jones ends up going this offseason? What's
He's going
most
to be a
likely?
giant. I mean, they're going to sign his 5th year option, right? He still has the 5th year option out there, right? They have to decide whether or not they take it and then restructure.
Yeah,
So I mean,
that's
they're
exactly it.
probably just do that. That's what makes the most sense. Just get him for like a guaranteed 20. There's no way he holds out. Like, what? Why would he? You know what I mean?
That's also my prediction at this point. Yeah, I don't think he really has the clout to hold out, and I honestly think he'll just end up getting clowned more than he would actually be celebrated if he ended up holding out. I don't think it would reach the outcomes that he would potentially want out of that. So other news in the NFL this week: Jim Bob Cooter coming back in the NFL. I kind of lost track of the man, if I'm being honest. Maybe the best name in all of the NFL, Jim Bob Cooter. I guess he was a consultant for the Eagles last year, probably the most important job in the entirety of the United States. And now he is back in a more prominent role as passing game coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, are you excited for this hire? Do you think he'll do a lot for Trevor Lawrence?
I think he can help out. I like you said, with a name that elite, like you just need to be in sports. It's in line with the receiver tight end of Joe Jaravicious. It's like when you have a name like that, you're just meant to be in the NFL. Jim Bob Cooter. Oh my God, just a perfect name. You need to be in the public eye.
I fully agree. He's a really creative play caller, but what's interesting is so much of what he does, because he used to be the offensive coordinator for the Lions. That's the context here. So much of what he does is just related to the line of scrimmage. He does a lot of motion stuff, and he's kind of one of those like somewhat early pioneers of like constantly having motion along the line of scrimmage. But he is so limited whenever it comes to deep play calling, and that makes me a little concerned for what T Law is going to end up doing. That's basically what got him fired in Detroit is he would not let Matthew Stafford throw the ball more than like 7 or 8 yards down the field. And with Matthew Stafford, like you have one of the biggest arms in all of the NFL. Like, why are you not letting him let loose? And so that's kind of what got him fired. And I'm a little worried that that's going to happen with T Law. However, I feel like with the Eagles, I feel like that his little run with the Jets there, feel like he probably got out of some bad habits there. And I think he could be definitely helpful for this Jaguars team, especially as the NFL seems to get more and more short game focused. Thinking of like Jalen Hurts last year, just like those short passing plays or those short pushes on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 plays. I think Jim Bob Cooter would be super helpful for that team just to win more and more stuff around the margins as they try and get more and more playoff appearances for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. So it's an exciting hire. I'm glad he's back in the league. It's very needed. Another great name in the NFL this week. I kind of wanted to do like a top 5 best name changes in the NFL, but we just don't have time today. Is Robbie Anderson, the wide receiver for the Cardinals? I think that was his most recent team. Most prominently, he was with the Jets and the Carolina Panthers. has decided to change his name for the second time. So he used to spell his name Robbie, Robby, and then he changed it to Robbie, Robbie. And then this week he decided to change it to Chosen Anderson, like the chosen one. What do you think of athletes like Ocho Cinco, etc., that decide to change their name into something a little more vanity like this?
Yeah, it's I never look on it with fondness. I mean, Ocho Cinco's was kind of funny, right? Meta World Peace was head scratching, but you know, you do you. Chosen Anderson, that's tough, man. Like, homie, you got like what 200 yards on the season. I'm not sure what you were chosen for, but it wasn't to receive any passes thrown your way from either the Panthers or the Cardinals. I don't know where he's getting the confidence for this one, but you know, more power to him.
Yeah, I don't even know if he got 200 yards this past year. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, you got to have some clout if you're going to end up doing something like that. Okay, he had 206, and he
Damn,
definitely
that's
doesn't.
pretty dang close then.
That's a
That's
good
not
prediction.
bad.
Yeah. I think you got to have a little more clout if you're trying to pull something off like this. Like Ron Artest was at least like an all star and everything like that. But Robbie Anderson, like he peaked out like 1,000 yards in his career, never had a Pro Bowl appearance or anything like that. So it's funnier whenever you're someone that's like really in the public eye. But like I just said at the top of the segment, I don't even remember where Robbie Anderson was playing at this point. So I think it's a little bit of a weird choice. But I mean, you do you. That makes you happy, I guess.
If
Do
it
what you
was
got to
Justin
do.
Jefferson saying, "Hey, I'm so good, I'm going to call myself Chosen Jefferson," people would be like, "That makes no sense," but he's right. He is the best receiver, right? Like then you're like, "Okay, whatever." Same with like Jamar. Jamar could make himself have a weird name. You know, AJ Brown for this year could have a fun name. Robbie Anderson didn't do anything. He's only known for his haircut, and that's not exactly what you want to be known for in the NFL.
Yeah, it literally looks like Patrick's star. It's just like a starfish outline. It's super strange looking. All right, so let's go into our free agency predictions. We just want to get this on paper. We want people to know where we stand with these free agents. We're probably going to be wrong a lot, but it's still fun just to look on where these free agents could potentially go based off of fit, who these teams need, and where these players could potentially want to go as well. So we're going to go position by position, starting with the offenses this week. We'll probably go defenses and like other skill positions next week. So we're going QB, RB, wide receiver, tight end this week. So let's start with the quarterbacks. We already talked about Lamar Jackson, already talked about Danny Dimes. Run me through who you're thinking for the other quarterback free agents this year.
Yeah, and just for everyone knows, it's going to be Carr, Baker, Jimmy G, Sam Darnold, Jacoby Brissett, Gino, and then Andy Dalton. So Carr, a lot of news around the Saints with him. That one just seems to kind of fit. So I like that fit. I just gotta go with Carr to the Saints. Jimmy G, Jimmy GQ, if you will. Just he's got the looks. I think he just strikes me as a New York quarterback. I think he could end up on the Jets. They need a QB. He could be perfect for that just studded team. Darnold, I think he just returns to the Panthers, right? I mean, it's they're going to need to draft a quarterback. There's a lot of question marks on that Panthers team. I could see them just saying, "Screw it." Darnold was okay, and like they're not winning anything this year, so he's just kind of that bridge. Danny Dimes, we said Giants. Jacoby Brissett, I think he comes back to the Browns.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think they get him a pretty decent, you know, backup type contract. He knows the organization pretty well. I think he sticks it out. Gino, I think it's obvious he's going to Seattle. Andy Dalton, same as Brissett. I think he's just an old guy, kind of tired of moving around. It makes sense to stick it out with the Saints. He'll be fighting for the job with Carr, honestly, because Carr is pretty up or down. So I could see Dalton wanting to stay there and just kind of enjoying his time in New Orleans. Then we have Rodgers and Brady, but Aaron, if he's playing this year, it's going to be with Green Bay. No one can trade for that contract, so that's pretty brutal. And then Brady is, I believe him when he says he's going into retirement. There, I don't see any reason he would be coming back, and it's sad, but it's unfortunate that the time is done.
Yeah, he's definitely going to male modeling or going to Fox or whatever. So it'd be funny if he reversed course at the end of the offseason, just like Brett Favre used to. But yeah, it's most likely he's done. I like all of your picks. The one that I think I disagree the most with, though, is Jacoby Brissett. I think that he, as we've discussed previously on pods, I think he is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, top 10 in EPA per play, and was honestly playing really well for the Browns. The rest of the Browns team just like kind of seemed out of sorts whenever he was starting and then obviously got replaced halfway through the season by Deshaun Watson. So I like Brissett to go to the Raiders to replace Carr, kind of like in that bridge plus kind of format. And I just think that he could find some pretty quick success, especially with the infrastructure that they have. And like, I don't know if there was a lot of overlap, but like Josh McDaniels really feels like a good mentor for Jacoby Brissett. I don't know if they had overlap whenever they were in New England, but
It did
I feel like
1
that would
year.
be okay. They had 1 year together. I think that would just be a really good fit for his development as he continues to progress into a what I consider a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Going through these other ones, love the Saints call here. I've been calling it all off season. I think that's the best spot for Derek Carr. Baker, I think he's just going to get frisky in Indianapolis, and they just need somebody. Jimmy G, I have to the Bucks. I mean, who's better than Tom Brady? Oh, get his old backup, get Jimmy G. Sam Darnold, I also love your bridge call with him. I think that he'd be a good mentor for anybody that's out there. I had him going to the Falcons. Danny Dimes sticking in New York. Geno Smith, I think there's absolutely no way he leaves the Seahawks. Every single thing that he's posted on social media has shown that he wants to go back to Seattle. And then Andy Dalton, I think would make a lot of sense as a high quality backup for the Commanders because it seems like right now they want to go Sam Howell. I don't think we see Carson Wentz make the roster by day one. And I think Andy Dalton makes a little more sense there. The other piece that I have that's a little different than yours is I do think Rodgers gets traded. I do think that the Packers aren't going to want to put 50 plus million towards quarterback with Rodgers and Jordan Love next year. And I think push is going to come to shove a little bit. And I think that the Packers are just going to go towards the future and they're going to go Jordan Love and they're going to trade Rodgers to the Jets for like a second round pick, maybe a first as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think if he gets traded, the Jets make the most sense. They have the capital to do it, and they have kind of a win now team, really. I mean, young talent on offense, but very talented defense as a whole. So I could see him wanting to go there. The part where I could see him being like, no, is he doesn't want to do the Brett Favre trajectory, as you and Spencer discussed a couple weeks ago. But it might just be what happens.
Yeah. Him with Brees Hall, with Garrett Wilson, and everything else they have going on there.
Michael
Like
Carter, don't disrespect the dude. That's a pretty solid RB too.
James Robinson. Not kidding. Yeah, Michael Carter's solid too. So yeah, they just have a lot of good infrastructure in there. And if Mekhi Becton comes back healthy, then the offensive line is solid. Like I think that could end up going a lot better than people expect. They're just like, haha, Jets, but
I mean,
they
it
actually
wasn't
might be a
the only
better
reason the
experience.
Jets lost the games they lost were because they were just turnover machines. And if there's one thing Rodgers isn't, is he doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, this past season was one of his worst seasons, and it was still only like 12 interceptions. Zach Wilson does
Exactly.
that in a month.
Exactly. So I think it would be a good situation, a win-win for everybody all involved. Alrighty. What do you think at running back this
Yep,
offseason?
Saquon's going to stay at the Giants. No team is going to go and break the bag or back up the Brinks truck for a free agent running back. It's only ever going to happen on your own team, so that just makes sense. I think Hunt makes a lot of sense with the Rams as they got rid of Darrell Henderson. It was kind of linked to him the whole year, but the trade never happened because they didn't need to. Rashad Penny, if he gets picked up by team Browns, I don't know. Just they seem like they could use another runner. He's just kind of a depth guy. Jamal Williams, Lions, that's the team that wants him. Josh Jacobs, I think Miami could be a really interesting
Mhm.
fit with that McDaniels system. Sanders, I could see going to the Bills with his kind of versatility. Tony Pollard, I think, has already been tagged by the Cowboys, so that's just a lock that he's going to be going back. Deontay Foreman, I think the Panthers make the most sense. Just he was kind of the bell cow there once McCaffrey left. Just keep him around. Wilson Jr., I think back in Miami. Mostert back in Miami. Singletary, I could see him going back to the Bills after the trade with the Colts this year. Montgomery, I think, signs back with the Bears. Then I could see Damian Harris going to the Cowboys as they cut Zeke this year.
Okay. Okay. So a lot to unpack here. I don't dislike any of these, and I think you keyed in on a lot of teams that are very, very running back hungry this offseason, which is going to be a really key piece because there's a lot of good running backs coming in the draft as well. So do you think Miami goes three running backs here, three free agent running backs with Wilson, Mostert, and Jacobs? Like, do you think that's realistic?
I think the realistic part is that McDaniel definitely loves Mostert. I think he's going to try to do everything he can to bring him back. They traded for Wilson Jr., which makes you think they want to keep him around. Like re-signing a guy is pretty not like I say it's easy, but it's definitely easier than like getting them wooed or brought in during free agency. So those guys make sense, and then it's really like okay, now getting Josh Jacobs to round out the room is like the real free agency acquisition in my opinion. The other two I think is just kind of a hey, let's build something here. You guys have had success behind like with this system, and we keep your legs fresh. You're not going to get like just murdered the way you could other places.
Yeah, I honestly don't dislike it, and especially with McDaniel coming out of that 49ers system where they played multiple running backs at all times, either at the same time on the field or just having that crazy rotation of a bunch of different guys being involved in the passing game and the rushing game. So I like that a lot, and I think that that's something that could end up happening. The one thing I don't like as much maybe is two running backs going to the Bills. I do think they're going to prioritize running back this offseason. I just don't think that Singletary is going to come back. I kind of feel like he's worn out his welcome a little bit. I like him going to the Cardinals to kind of spell James Conner. They seem to prioritize running backs a lot. They gave a lot to Chase Edmonds previously to be that second running back, but I think Singletary could kind of end up being that guy right next to James Conner. Other pieces here, love the Saquon back to the Giants. I think that's a done deal. I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if the Lions let Jamal Williams walk. He's the heart and soul of that team. I don't necessarily want it to happen because I want DeAndre Swift to finally have a big year. I just think that Jamal Williams is too integral to everything they're doing culture wise there. I think my favorite call this offseason is Kareem Hunt to the LA Chargers. He's just like a younger Austin Eckler, or maybe they're even the same age. I don't even know, but like a fresher Austin Eckler. I think that he does so many of the same things, but like in terms of the passing game, in terms of the rushing game, I think that he could spell Eckler beautifully and maybe take a little bit of that workload off of him. Rashad Penny, I could see going to the Dolphins as like a low cost option as they have more contracts build up. Josh Jacobs, I think the Bills are very desperate for adding a big piece to try and catch up to the Bengals and the Chiefs this offseason. And so I think they go big and get Josh Jacobs to the Bills. Miles Sanders, meanwhile, I think fits very well with the Panthers. I think they're going to want to consolidate some of that running back talent and get a more top end guy. I think pairing him with whatever quarterback they get this offseason could be very, very huge. Deontay Foreman, I think, ships over to the West Coast. I think he goes to Seattle, kind of replacing that Penny role to back up Kenneth Walker III. Jeff Wilson Jr., I think, fits in well with Sean Payton. I think that gives him a lot of good versatility and also gives him an insurance policy in case Javonte Williams isn't fully healthy. I like Mostert to the Texans to kind of spell Damian Pierce. David Montgomery, I think, fits in as a Falcon. He just feels like a Falcons player in a lot of ways, and that's kind of like an insurance policy in case Algier falls off in his sophomore year. I definitely think Damian Harris moves to a new team. I think Stevenson is the truth in New England. I like him in the Rams to kind of be right next to Cam Akers. And I also think Zeke ends up getting traded slash cut this offseason. And I like him to go to the Bears. I think the Bears need to make a little bit of a splash on offense. They don't have a lot of talent. And if Montgomery ends up leaving the team, I think Zeke is a guy that a lot of people get excited for, especially as they move into a new stadium.
Yeah, I love young Zeke. I just don't know how you can say, "Oh, getting this current iteration of Zeke is the splash move the Bears need." I could see them taking him on, as in like we'll take his contract and a third round pick for like a seventh or a sixth, as a way to just kind of build out. But there's no way you could just be like, "Yes, this is the move that we need to make."
Yeah, I don't think that like people that know football are going to be super excited about Zeke going to the Bears, but I think like casual fans are going to be like, oh yeah, we got Zeke. He's top 5 pick. He's been an RB1. He's won me fantasy leagues. Like I think a lot of people in Chicago would be excited about it. Whether he has a late career resurgence, kind of like Adrian Peterson got his second win, is yet to be determined. But I think that a lot of people will be pretty excited about what will happen. But I personally wouldn't be that excited. I think it's a nothing move.
I also think your Damian Harris, or not, sorry, your David Montgomery to the Falcons. I think that's a pretty good landing spot. Like
Doesn't he just
it
feel
makes
like a
sense.
Falcon?
He
Doesn't he just like
does.
feel like a Falcon? I don't know. Like I'm shocked he hasn't been on the Falcons yet. I know he's only been on one team, so I
Yeah.
think it should happen. All right, looking at wide receivers now. There's not a lot of wide receiver talent
No,
out there, especially
it's
after
and two
Adrian
of them are
Peterson.
Patriots, which means my room is about to get even smaller. But I went Aguilar to the Chiefs. I think that makes a lot of sense. Fast guy, kind of a wide receiver. It seems to be that's what they're going for now. It's like the Chiefs' mentality to receivers is everyone else's mentality towards running backs. Like, just grab a person, we'll figure it out after that. Like, as long as they can get some semblance of separation and don't false start, like Patrick will get them the ball. So I could see them grabbing Aguilar. He's had some big plays, but just had some brutal drops. But I think with Patrick Mahomes, he could look pretty damn good. I think Juju goes to the Chargers. They're going to need some receiving talent there. just had a big year. I could see them making a big trade, especially if they drop Keenan Allen, like is kind of suspected so far. Jacoby, this might just be wishful thinking. He's coming back to the Patriots. I think Lazard sticks with the Packers, Slayton sticks with the Giants. I think DJ Shark actually goes to the Giants. You kind of mentioned they need to start spending up for some of this talent. I think that could make a lot of sense. He had a pretty solid year. Not like flashy, not great, but had especially towards the end, really started to make some plays for that Lions team. I can see the
Mhm.
Giants wanting to take a chance there. I think Shepard goes to the Vikings as they try to round out their roster. I think Julio retires or just stays a free agent. Maybe gets picked up midseason by someone. I just don't know after the game film he put out this year that would make anyone just like lose their mind for him. I mean, he had some big catches, but he's just kind of always hurt. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
unfortunate. He's just old now, and it just is what it is. Thielen stays. I think Keenan Allen. This is me being slightly sarcastic, but I think Keenan Allen goes to the Patriots or D Hop goes to the Patriots. Like one of these older guys, kind of veteran guys, is just like what Bill Belichick loves, and I could see one of them making their way over. Robert, um,
Woods.
well, I'm mixing it. Yeah, sorry, Robert Woods. I think retires or stays a free agent, kind of like Julio. Maybe gets picked up midseason. And then Odell, I think, could be a Packer when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just to be clear, too, that Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, that's kind of like the trio of guys that is suspected to be traded or cut this offseason, kind of like Zeke and Rodgers sort of thing. So I think that they also find new teams in that situation. I like your Odell pick to the Packers. I also like him to going to the Aaron Rodgers led Jets. I just kind of feel like they deserve each other. Looking at some of these other options, I like your Aguilar to the Chiefs option just to get more speed there. But I think he fits better in with the Philly Fire Department. Just making fumbles. Unlike that one guy who was able to catch that baby. I think Juju stays with the Chiefs. Also, wishful thinking. I hope Jacoby Myers goes to the Baltimore Ravens to give the Ravens one more weapon finally. I think Lazard moves on just based off his cryptic comments that he's had. And I think he goes to the Panthers this offseason. I like Darius Slayton to the Colts. I think Paris Campbell probably moves on. We don't have him on this list, but he is a free agent. I think Slayton slides in very nicely into that role. I think DJ Chark is a worthwhile gamble for any team out there that wants a good wide receiver too. I think Chark has been injured a lot, but he showed a lot on the Jags, and I think going to the Vikings makes a lot of sense. Sterling Shepard, I also think he has a lot left in the tank. He's just hurt all the time. And I think the Titans need low cost options. And I think he's a worthy gamble for the Titans to do this offseason. I think Julio goes to the Packers. I feel like that's been a rumor for like 3 straight off seasons, and I think it finally needs to happen. So I think Julio does latch onto the Packers on a really cheap AJ Green type deal. I like Thielen to the Patriots. A white wide receiver on the Patriots just makes too much sense. I like Keenan Allen to go back to the Chargers. And I like DeAndre Hopkins as a big splash for the Buffalo Bills. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. And then lastly, Bobby Trees. I just want to see him to go back to the Rams, hang out with his old buddy Cooper Cup, catch balls from Matthew Stafford all over again. I think that's what needs to happen. And they don't really have a wide receiver too because Allen Robinson just disappears all the time. So that's kind of where I'm at with the wide receivers.
Bobby treats the Rams. I think that'd be great. If you drop Robinson to wide receiver 3 or even 4, you can really just make him a very specialty guy. It's tough because they paid so much for him, but I like that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think about the tight ends? So there's again not a ton of talent there.
Not
So
I think the big one's going to be what do Schultz and Ingram do? They had the biggest seasons. I think both of them end up back with their teams. Ingram had way too good of a season towards the end for the Jags to not want him back. Same with Schultz. He was like one of the real that wasn't even premiers, just like reliable pass catchers for Dak down the stretch when they needed scores. Like it just seemed like it was CD and then Schultz, right? Like they had so many other receiving options that just couldn't do it. They were, uh, just running bad routes, quitting on routes, etc. Like Gallup just looked horrible. Their two rookies didn't look great. Like I think Schultz comes back. Just gonna be tough because they don't have a ton of money.
mhm.
Same, I think Tunnion's back with the Packers, or Tony might just go wherever Aaron Rodgers goes. Like those guys just have insane chemistry.
Yeah.
Hurst, I think, returns to the Bengals. The only real splash is I think Gesicki makes a lot of sense with the Patriots. They love pass catching tight ends. They love guys that are kind of out bad right now. Like Gesicki's not going to demand a whole bunch after this past season. I think the Patriots have seen him enough to know what he can do, whereas other teams might kind of discount his prior season and not really make a splash or go for him. And I think Irv Smith replaces him in Miami as really more of a blocking tight end for that running scheme. and just, making a couple, splash catches, but nothing crazy because that's all he really did for the Vikings.
Yeah. Do you think the Patriots pay up for 3 high, not maybe high level, but high
I think they're
value
gonna
tight ends?
restructure cut Jonnu and try to replace that.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot more sense then. That kinda tracks because, paying 3 guys top dollar would be
They
great for a
always
tight end.
carry 3 tight ends, and that's a matter of the pay. If they can get Gesicki for cheap, I like it. But they're already restructuring Henry. I think they're gonna restructure Jonnu and then possibly bring on Gesicki.
Okay. I like these. Yeah, it's you never really know with these tight ends. And honestly, I was looking back at some of the biggest tight end deals for tight ends that change teams during an offseason, and a lot of them just don't really pan out. Like it's Jonu to the Patriots, it's
That's
Jesse
brutal.
James to the Lions for 30 million. Like it's some pretty tough contracts if we're being real. So realistically, none of these are going to work out. I have Mike Gesicki to the Commanders. I think that they need to surround whoever they play at quarterback with talent, and I think he's an upgrade over Logan Thomas. I think Dalton Schultz fits in very well with the Colts. The Colts have a long line of good tight ends, and it feels like they haven't had a good one in a minute. So I would love for him to go to the Colts. Evan Ingram, I have going to the Panthers. I think that makes a lot of sense as they try to get more talent for whatever quarterback that they put in there, and having a reliable tight end is really good for a young guy. Austin Hooper, I think, kind of replaces Evan Ingram for the Jaguars. Robert Tunyon, I put Packers here, but you made a great point. I think he just goes wherever Rodgers goes, honestly, on a cheap deal. I think Hayden Hurst is way too beloved in Cincinnati to leave there. They call him the Hurst Trap, aka the Thirst Trap, and I think that's great. I think he stays with the Bengals. He found a good spot there. And then lastly, I have Irv Smith to the Texans as they try and accumulate young talent. He's only 24 years old. So like I think there's some good options that he could have in Houston. A lot of the Houston tight ends right now are pretty old and don't have a lot of upside, but Irv Smith would kind of give that to them. So I like
Since
him
we only
there.
have so much time, do you want to just go straight into our hot take segment?
You don't want to talk basketball?
I mean, I we can cover it very quickly. I don't know how much
I
time
know.
we got.
I'm kidding, man. I know you
Okay.
don't want to talk basketball. Let's go to the hot take section. So basically, the idea of this section here is we are looking at two guys, and I am going to give two guys to Jimmy D, two names, and he's going to try and guess which of the two guys is taller, and then vice versa. And whoever gets the most right wins.
Yep.
So you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I went with Odell versus Michael Thomas. Which of these two wide receivers do you think is taller?
So people don't remember when Odell was at LSU, he was honestly kind of more like a slot kind of guy, and he kind of still kind of fits that role on occasion. So I feel like Michael Thomas is taller, but I feel like you also might be trying to fool me. But I'm gonna go Michael Thomas.
I was trying to fool you. It is Michael Thomas. He is six
Oh yeah,
three to Odell's 5'11". I did not know Odell was that short. He always just seemed, because to your point, since he's been in the NFL, he's been an X receiver, right? And just seems like a lanky, stretch the field guy. Michael Thomas is slant boy. I didn't realize he was tall. So yeah,
yeah.
it's a very surprising to me to see that.
He plays bigger. So my first one that I have for you, going the battle of the offensive linemen. I feel like a lot of offensive linemen are either really tall or like really short and stout, like Riley Reef. So it's kind of hard to tell. I have Orlando Brown of the Kansas City Chiefs versus Taron Armstead, the new left tackle for the Miami Dolphins.
Right, and Armstead was a Saint for a long time, correct?
Yep.
I believe Tehran is pretty enormous. I'm gonna pick Tehran Armstead over Orlando Brown, but I don't know Brown very well. I've seen enough Saints games that I feel like Armstead's pretty big.
Yeah, I was shocked by this one too. I also thought Armstead was massive, but it's actually Orlando Brown. Brown is 6'8", which shocked me.
Dang.
Armstead's only 6'5". Yeah,
Okay.
6'5".
Wow,
So
6'8". I didn't know that.
yeah, he's a big man.
Okay, so then I've got for you a little battle of the quarterbacks. Philip Rivers, 17 kids and counting, versus Tom Brady, who is taller.
I feel like Rivers with like all of his sidearm bullshit that he always did, like there was a reason he had to do that, right? And that was just to be able to get around defenders because he couldn't go over the top. So I'm gonna guess Brady, but I don't feel good about it.
No, Philip Rivers is actually a big dude, big corn fed, 6'5". Tom Brady 6'4". This one was definitely, just down to the inch, but because I definitely, to your point, like Tom Brady's stature, like he's just so thin, looks very lanky and long, right? Philip Rivers is just thicker all around, so like you don't the comparison just seems off. But it is in fact Rivers.
Isn't it funny
If
how
I
we get
if I'd
these?
have picked Skycan Glennon, it would have been pretty easy.
True, true. Isn't it funny how we get like these connotations of players of like guys who we think are thick and therefore short and stout, but like realistically they're also massive people
Yeah,
too.
everyone in this league is just a monster.
Exactly. Being standing next to one of these guys is just insane and kind of scary. Similar for these two guys here. I think of both of these guys as short kings, but they're also way taller in reality. I have Noah Fant tight end for the Seahawks versus Zach Ertz tight end
Yeah,
for the
this is
Cardinals.
tough because I think they're both pretty damn tall. I think Ertz is like 6'6". I want to say Fant is 6'4", 6'5". So I'm gonna go with Ertz, but if you say it's Fant, I wouldn't be surprised. Like this is truly a great pick because these guys, like to me, are the same person.
Yeah, they literally are. It's just Fant is like 10 years younger. And you are right. Zach Ertz is taller than Noah Fant by an inch. He's 6'5 versus Noah Fant's 6'4".
Tight end's
So
tough because that one's like everyone's 6'4" to 6'6". Like there's no huge outliers really in that whole position group.
exactly. So it's gonna come down to the final round. It's 1-1 going into
Yeah,
the
and this
third
this
round.
is this is the fun one. We get to rank them. So I've got the Long family: Chris Long, Howie Long, Kyle Long. Chris Long, defensive player; Howie and Kyle, offensive players. But who's the biggest?
This is so hard. So I feel like Howie's got like that old man syndrome. He's starting to hunch over a little bit. So I'm knocking him out
We're going
immediately.
with playing height on Howie Long,
I,
just so you
I
know.
for sure, for sure. But that's just like the connotation that I have, and I don't
Yeah,
have a lot to go off of. So I'm taking Howie Long out of the equation. I think Kyle, he was a guard for the Bears.
he
I
was a
think
guard.
as a guard, you're usually a little bit shorter because you don't want to be too tall for your quarterback that's trying to overlook you in the middle. You got to get that leverage up, right? So I think Kyle's a little bit shorter. And I think Chris, as the D end, he was such a flexible D end for the Rams for so many years. I think that he had the greatest height in his team. So I'm going Chris Long over Howie and Kyle.
Yeah, you're all the way wrong on the Long family. It is actually Chris Long at 6'3", which is a pretty typical D end. Howie Long, also a guard, 6'5". Kyle Long, a monster 6'6" guard. Yeah,
Wow,
that
that
is a
is
huge
nice.
human. I think he played a little bit of tackle too, is probably why it was a little like a bit of a misnomer.
That's what I'm saying, man. These connotations, like you never really know. Like you think
Because I'm
that,
with
like,
you. As
oh,
soon as you see guard, you're like, oh, he could be 6'2". Like you don't have to be huge to be a guard. Or if it was a center, oh my god, you can be 6 foot tall. It doesn't matter.
yeah, I want to play this game again to do it with corners that like are just oddly super tall or ones that are just like super short, like 5'6" for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So we should play it again. All right, for my last round here, you got to get this in order to win. I have JJ Watt versus TJ Watt versus Derek Watt, the Watt brothers.
I think this one's actually not too bad because Derek is just not on the same level as these guys. I'm pretty sure he's just short, stocky fullback, so he's the shortest. TJ's in the middle, and JJ's an absolute monster. I believe JJ is bigger than TJ by just like a couple inches.
Yeah, you nailed it. So Derek is
Okay.
6'2", TJ is 6'4", and JJ is 1 inch taller at 6'5". So you nailed it. It
Honestly,
was in
I'm
order.
surprised Derek is 6'2". Like when you think fullback, you're like, oh my god, he could be 5'10" and just a muscle hamster. Like I mean, he's just not the same level of athlete as the other two, which is hilarious to say because they're all NFL athletes.
Yeah, he just absorbed oncoming pass rushers. So he was just able to get his arms around them. And my only thing that I've seen them all in the same spot for is that Subway commercial. So I was hoping that that might throw you off a little bit, but you won 2-1. Well done,
Love
JBD.
it. Well, I know
Great
you
game.
have a meeting, so I will let you get to it unless you have anything else to say to the fans here.
No, great episode. Looking forward to the off season, and we'll still have fun stuff for y'all. So I'll
Yep.
talk to you guys
Bye,
later.
everybody.